Today's episode is a special one. We're diving deep into something that's very close to my heart, and that is my journey from expert to leader. Stick around till the end because I've got something very exciting to share with you. Trust me, you don't want to miss it. Welcome to Creator to Leader. Are you struggling to connect with your ideal customers online? Are you confused about the most effective way to market your business? If you're ready to become the go-to expert in your industry and stand out from the crowd, this podcast is for you. Hey, I'm Eugenia. That's Eugenia in Spanish, but you can call me E. My mission is to help entrepreneurs stand out online so that they can grow their businesses. I do this through comprehensive marketing strategies, impactful content plans, and storytelling leadership. We both know you are running on caffeine and big dreams, so let's dive right in. Do you ever catch yourself dreaming of the day your message not only reaches thousands, but actually changes lives, create relationships, and makes you feel like you are fulfilling your purpose? Where your voice is not only heard, but it is respected, it is influential, it is followed, and not from a place of ego or from a place of wanting to be the center of attention, but from a place of impact, from a place of, I've got so many valuable lessons and knowledge and things to share with the world. I think and I'm sure that this information needs to reach more people. I've met so many passionate experts like that are just so in love with their purpose, with their knowledge, and their motor of their actions is really reaching more people and helping more people connect and find this information. And I'm wondering if this is you. And even though that dream sometimes might seem far because we might have tried so many things, we might have tried tactics and courses and mentors, and we haven't gotten the results we were after, I want to tell you that it's possible for you, and I know it because I was there, not for a quick month, not for a quick second, I was there for years. And it took me so much learning, so much falling down, getting back up again, not one course, but spending thousands of dollars in learning different skills until finding my own methodology. And I love to share when a journey is not a straight path because I cannot be alone in the situation or the fact that we grow and we evolve in our businesses, in our passions, in our creator journeys. And we get to a point where we just reach that clarity and we know the impact that we want to have. Yet we're not there yet. And the way of getting there, and this is a little spoiler for the end of the story, is going from expert to leader. Because we are in a digital landscape oversaturated with information. Just in general, we are receiving hundreds of thousands of messages a day. And the brain has to separate what we want to pay attention to. So being great and knowing a lot of stuff is not enough. You need to stand out. You need to lead. And I don't mean that you need to be the loudest person in the room, but you need to be the person with a unique perspective that catches the eye. And yes, standing out is the first step, but then what do you do about it, right? That's how you evolve, or that's when you evolve into leadership. This is about making a meaningful impact, inspiring your audience, and all of this elevates your personal brand. Personal branding is a journey. It is not a destination that you reach, you finish, and you are done with it. It is a journey, you set a strategy, and then it grows with you. And that's what's so fascinating about it. I learned this, as I said, the hard way. And I want to share every insight with you or the main takeaways of this process with you. And I want to start by rewinding a few years. First of all, I'm Eugenia. You can call me E. I'm originally from Venezuela. I moved to the US right after college, and there was a huge political component in my decision, but I still had this desire to create a life I loved. And I've loved performing since I was a little girl. My dream was to be an American Idol or to be a beauty queen. And side note, beauty pageants are huge in Venezuela. And I saw the women that were part of the beauty pageant system as super women. So they were super inspiring for me. When I was little, I was part of my school chorus. I was part of my city's community theater for a couple of years. And then in college, I started acting a little bit more seriously. And I would tell people that I was acting and I was studying communications on the side. And it was the one thing where I consistently, throughout my whole college career, I kept wanting to go back to, and I would spend hours just immersed in rehearsals and learning and just getting better at my craft. So I decided that I wanted to go all in after graduation. And this is the first chapter that's called The Move, because I divided this story into chapters, 5 chapters, because I wanted to break it down for you, kind of a little bit of a novel in audio version. So this is the move. Moving to the US, political reasons involved, still wanting to be an actor, wanting to find my path here, but understanding that as an immigrant, if you want to do things the right way, the legal way, sometimes you need to make decisions, or you need to prioritize certain decisions, I would say. And that's chapter 2, right? That's our business for me. Because one of the decisions I had to make as an immigrant was to find a path that would allow me for safety. I enrolled in an MBA program. I had the counsel of a family member at the time. And from her experience, she thought that this MBA program would be the safest path to me. And I appreciated her thoughts at the time. And I definitely was interested in the business world. I love learning. So I didn't hate the idea, but it definitely wasn't 100% aligned with my personality, my interests, and my value. However, it did teach me a lot. And like Taylor Swift, it was the first time where I was like, you're on your own, kid, right? So that was amazing for maturity and for learning and for really knowing myself. But I always kept this desire for performance and making my life my art. I'm not a plastic artist or drawing. That's not what I mean. I mean a life of creation, a life of bringing things to life, of bringing ideas to life and connecting with people and solving problems. That's something that's so fascinating to me. So after a couple of years of doing my MBA, I was really creatively starved because my MBA was extremely formulaic and very traditional corporate business. And then my job at the time was also very structured. So I was missing that creative freedom. So I decided to launch a blog. And the blog was called Living Grit. And the whole premise behind the blog was you find passion by living a passionate life, adding passion to everything you do. And this blog was kind of a journal for me where I was documenting my journey and doing my MBA. I was doing my MBA at a different city here in Miami, but in a different city. I don't know if you've ever been to Miami. Public transportation is basically non-existent in between like cities, like different cities. And I still managed to do that. And that brought me so many experiences. So I wanted to document this journey. But that blog lasted only for a couple of months because I totally underestimated the time and effort it would take. Plus, I wanted to do the blog and Instagram and post every day. And I was just kind of confused because that was peak influencer time. And I thought I had to behave like an influencer. Now looking back, I would tell myself like, girl, just have a Substack. You'll be fine. But at the time, I just didn't know what I didn't know. So I stopped doing my blog, and a few months later, I launched with a friend, De Vinos y Otros Cuentos. That's Wine and Other Stories. That was one of the first podcasts in Spanish. And I remember having to create infographics because I wanted to explain, or I needed to explain what a podcast was to my friends and family and have them listen. I was hosting the podcast on SoundCloud. I even forgot the name. Oh my gosh. It's this kind of Spotify. I think it's SoundCloud. I need to Google it now that I think about it. But I was hosting it there. And that's where you could get your episodes. It was an interview show. I bought the wrong mic, but it was $60. And I didn't know what I was doing, but I learned like the school of hard knocks. Trust me. But I met amazing people through this journey, like amazing, amazing people that were really interested in being on the podcast. And when I launched it, I didn't really have a goal with a podcast. Like I knew the potential it had. I was already a fan of podcasts and I really loved interviewing people. And this felt like a stage to me, but I really didn't have a goal or a plan with it. And I ended up burning out after a year because the whole production process took me a very long time, so many hours. And I had gone through my whole year. I went through 3 co-hosts. So my friend that I launched the podcast with, then my other friend I did it for a couple of months with, and then my third friend I did the last leg of the podcast. And I really loved at the time feeling like we were building something together. But something I never did with my partners was to get clear on our dreams, our goals, our expectations. So I was always putting more on them, like expectations on them, because to me, this was serious. So I didn't have a plan. I didn't have a clear stated plan or where I wanted to take it, but I definitely wanted a podcast, to be part of my career. And to them, it was more of a fun hobby, I guess. And that created some tension between us because we were coming from different places. None of us was wrong. It was just not communicated to each other. For something like this to work in a partnership, a podcast, or a creative project in the long run and as a professional avenue, both people need to be on the same page. So this is side advice for any partnership, whether in business or even personal relationships, romantic relationships. Going with the flow is a terrible advice. You need to get clear on your dreams, your goals, your expectations, and you need to make sure that both people are aligned. But I digress. I need to make a whole episode about this if you want. As I mentioned, I burn out. I stopped pursuing that podcast. And the next couple of years were challenging personally for me with my mental health. And I had a lot to figure out. I really had to pause. But during the pandemic of 2020, something happened, like something changed. And this is where we enter chapter 3, which is my attempt at art and business. Since with the pandemic, everyone was sent home, I was not commuting, which was already saving me almost 2 hours, extra 2 hours a day. I really had so much time and space to think about my future, what I really wanted. And I decided that I still had this passion for helping women find their best version of themselves and really become comfortable in their skin and living a life they were proud of. Like, that was behind all of my content all the time. So I decided to launch a podcast and a blog again, this time in English and this time by myself. And the podcast was called Fairly Bold. My idea was, back in 2020, the political climate was crazy. And the message that was being pushed to women was, you have to be almost like a man if you want to be powerful. So there was this unhealthy idea between the intersection of power and femininity, like they could not coexist. So if a man is aggressive, we have to be even more aggressive. If a man sexualizes our bodies, we need to sexualize our own bodies. Like, it was crazy. And I wanted to explore how we can take power without letting go of our femininity, or having femininity mean that we have to wear flowy dresses and bows. You can if that's your style, but femininity is way more than that. And I was so passionate about this podcast. At the time, the concept was a little weird for people. I also had to explain it. Now, looking back, everyone's like, 100%, I understand, you're so right. But at the time, it was weird. It was really weird. And some people were even offended by my message. It was crazy. Now I'm more prepared if, this idea of leadership in the online space. When I first launched the podcast, people were confused, like, what does it mean? And I know that this is the future of personal branding and this is the future of influence. So I am okay with building and educating my audience in the process. But at the time, I didn't have that skill. And again, this time I was going solo because I knew that I wanted to build a business. And it's crazy to think that I was already an MBA grad, yet I let myself be confused by the overly simplistic internet advice that says, just create amazing content and they will come. Like, that was it everywhere. So I was like, oh, for sure. I really am so passionate about this topic. I have so many interesting things to say. I can line up some great interviews. They will come 100%. So I saved up for a few months and quit my day job. And I've always valued creative freedom, but now I was able to articulate my desire to build a business. I knew that because I was seeing it in other people, it was possible to build this creative cash flow machine. And I had discovered the online space with all its opportunities. And I had seen a little glimpse of the online space. Now I'm so much more aware of everything it has to offer. But that was 2020. The online space, it was big. Like we had big names like Amy Porterfield, but it wasn't as mainstream as it became after 2020. So I was doing my podcast, my blog, I was doing my Pinterest account, and my business plan was to have people find me, join my email list, and make thousands of dollars in affiliate income. Like that was it. And end of the plan. And I was super consistent for a couple of months. But despite all of my efforts, the growth was so painfully slow. My voice was lost in the void. I was doing everything quote unquote right. I was creating content. I was being consistent. I was engaging with my audience. Yet it felt like I was getting nowhere. So after a year of being stuck, and if I'm being fully honest, I was also affected by comparing myself to other people that I was seeing having more quote unquote success than me or faster, I paused once again. I was so frustrated. I really wanted to change. So I dove headfirst into this journey of transformation, trying to really understand myself, understand the space. And it wasn't overnight. I wish I could tell you after this, I took a course, everything changed. No, it wasn't easy. I really fail and learn. And that's why I like to call this chapter not a failure, but redirection. And this is chapter 4. So I launched my podcast production business. I got my first clients working along my brother, who is an incredible podcast editor. He's the editor for this podcast. And I would say one of the best in the industry. If you listen to other business podcasts, his editing is top 5%, I would say. Not because he worked with me, but it's just incredible when you compare and listen to other people's podcasts. So we were working, and I didn't look for it, but I had once again this partnership that was motivating for me. And this time, though, we were both aligned about where we wanted to go. So we were growing in clients. We developed incredible relationships that lasted a very long time. We had incredible client retention, and we both grew a lot, like as people in our relationship and in our businesses. So during this time, though, I wasn't 100% sustained by my business. So I took different roles that went from social media manager to virtual assistant to marketing project manager. And I even returned to corporate for a little bit as an account manager for an ad agency. So doing paid advertising, like running the accounts for paid advertising campaigns, meaning campaigns in the ads you see on Hulu or social ads or Google ads. So working in the relationships with the clients that were running those campaigns. And working on creating communication strategies for big multinational corporate clients that wanted to understand how to connect with their audience better across all different touch points and different channels. So that was incredible. I learned so much. I learned how the giants play. And from all of this experience working with really huge people, looking back right now, I'm so mesmerized that I was able to work with, those big names and those big brands. I learn the art of true leadership in your branding. I realized that good content isn't enough if you are not positioned as a leader. That revelation was my turning point. And that takes me to chapter 5. And this is the platform that changed the game. Armed with this knowledge, I refined my approach and I changed my focus to building a platform, not only to creating content, not only sharing my expertise. And I looked at leaders I admired, how they spoke, how they shared, how they led. And I realized they had platforms, not only channels, not only a social media account, not only a newsletter, it was a platform. Everything was part of this ecosystem. They had a strong foundation with a clear message, with a clear perspective, and every time you encounter them in the online space, it felt like a cohesive story. So I implemented that with myself, taking from everything I had learned through courses, my education, my experience, my clients, like all of these things I had learned, building my own methodology and launching Creator to Leader. And it didn't just grow and did great. It launched in the top 37 on Apple Podcasts, reached over 30 countries in less than 3 months. It soared to the top 3 of podcasts globally. But most importantly, it has allowed me to connect genuinely with my audience and make the impact I had been dreaming of for years. So I started to rebuild, focusing on what I stood for, on my unique voice. And I started to see a shift in everything else in my business. My audience was engaging. They were believing in what I was saying. They were seeing for themselves the vision of leadership that I was talking about. And now, in terms of business results, if you wish, it has allowed me to secure new clients, dream clients, and connect with incredible people who resonated with this message of leadership. So this girl, recent grad who moved to the US, wanting to be on a stage, finally realized that turning on the little light on her stage would lighten the stages of other people. And every time you turn on the light on your stage of your expertise, you light up the path for others. It is a true ripple effect. And that is what I find motivating, because we don't have, all of us, a big Tony Robbins personality. I have an accent. Some people are not a big Seth Godin genius who has a huge idea on how to solve world hunger before breakfast. Like, you don't need those things. You don't need to have the perfect education, the perfect accent, be the most eloquent person. Those are skills that you can learn. What you need is to have the conviction and the empathy and the self-leadership to reach the place you envision yourself being in. And not for yourself, but for the people that come through you. And that doesn't mean that you are ignoring your self-fulfillment, because this is incredibly fulfilling to me. I get to have business and be strategic and really be in control of my decisions while also being so creatively fulfilled. I still want to reach more creative milestones. I still love acting, but I don't feel like I'm split between the two. I feel integrated. I have found a way to share my personal brand, my purpose, in a way that's aligned with my values and with the vision I have for my life. So what are some key takeaways for you? First, leadership is more than just visibility. It is about making a real impact. Second, a strategic platform is crucial. Content alone won't cut it. And third, authenticity and positioning as a leader are your best tools for growth. And this journey hasn't just been about my podcast or my brand. It was about truly discovering how to connect and lead in the digital age. So what's the difference between being an expert and being a leader? An expert shares information. A leader invites to a transformation. An expert is a resource. A leader is a guide. An expert offers solutions for the now, and a leader paints a vision for the future. An expert follows what others think and what others have said, and a leader develops her unique perspectives and is not afraid to let them shine. A leader is not a BFF. Oh, this is so important. A leader can be friendly, but is not your best friend, because a leader needs to come from a place of authority. Once we've connected with empathy, we also have the authority to say, I have a vision for how things could be in the future. A leader cares too much to let their people stay where they're at. And that's why a leader gets uncomfortable and is willing to beat the resistance of change, because they know that what's on the other side of transformation is too important to stay put, to stay quiet, to not say anything, to stay hidden in the dark. What's on the other side of leadership? Relationships, influence, purpose, impact. Sure, you can write a book, launch your podcast, become a keynote speaker, but until you have your brand platform, until you're clear on what problem you solve, until you're able to clearly communicate that, until you're able to clearly show up as a leader with confidence and from your authenticity, all those efforts will leave you as I was. Shouting into a void, feeling invisible, feeling overlooked. On the other side of leadership is where your purpose becomes a reality. You don't need a specific personality type. You don't need a specific follower count. You already were created with skills and talents that make you a leader. Don't believe me 100%? You can stand on my belief because I have seen it time and time again with people with different personality types, different skill sets, different nationalities, and their heart for leadership is there. And it is so powerful when that heart is able to be directed to stand on the stage that it belongs to. You just need to clarify the elements of your platform and embody this version of leadership. This is your version of leadership. That's what's so powerful. These are my principles, but this is not my version of leadership. These are my principles to build your version of leadership. So whether you are a consultant, a coach, a content creator, if you're an expert, your platform is your stage. It's not about being everywhere. It's about being where it matters, speaking in a way that draws people in, and leading with your authentic self. If you feel inspired and excited to elevate your brand from expert to leader, then my program From Expert to Leader is your next best step. Because we're going to dive deep into building your brand strategy, sharpening your messaging, and carving out your unique space in the digital world. And this isn't a one-size-fits-all type of deal. This is a co-creation journey where we're going to work together to define the elements of your platform, which is your communication strategy. This is the foundation of everything you're going to do afterwards. This is the way your personal brand speaks, what it says, your unique hot takes, what makes you a leader. We're going to work together during 7 sessions, and trust me, you will not be the same person once we're done. I have 3 spots for this beta round. You can DM me at @eugenia.woo if you want more information. That's @EUGENIA.WOO. Also, you can check out the show notes if you want to just book a call and have a conversation and see if this is the right next step for you, if you're ready to step into leadership. Let's transform your brand together. And if today's story struck a chord, share your thoughts with me. Drop a comment on my latest Instagram post, that's @eugenia.woo, or send me a DM. I am here for the conversation, for the community, and most importantly, for you. See you soon. Un beso. I hope you loved this episode. If you connected with the podcast in some way, please rate it and review it on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. That is the #1 way you can support the show. And because sharing is caring, share it with a fellow entrepreneur wanting to become a leader, not just a creator. I am so grateful for you. I'd love to hear from you. Shoot me a DM over to @eugenia.woo. That's @EUGENIA.WOO. And if you only send me a microphone emoji, I will know that you stayed till the end. Thank you for listening. See you soon.